Hi, I'm Susie Bloom. I'm one of the librarians. Today we're going to first start off by doing a basic scholarly searching refresher. Then we're going to take a look at the JETfind box on the library homepage. We'll discuss the communication and mass media complete database. Take a look at LibGuides, how to analyze sources using the CCOW method, and finally we'll end off with where you can go for some extra help. So first, let's get started by looking at some of the basics of scholarly searching. And we'll start off by discussing how scholarly searching is different from using Google. If you're like me, you use Google every single day of your life, and it's great if you want to look up sports scores or buy a pair of shoes, but it's not as useful if you want to do scholarly research. In Google, you could just ask a question. You could just say, who introduced the Schreiber theory? And you'll get results. Whether they're good results or not, that depends, but you'll get something. In fact, you'll get millions of results, probably too many. In library databases, you don't want to use every word. You don't want to talk to it like it's a person. So the word introduced might not necessarily be specific enough to your particular topic for you to use. A word like who is not related to the Schreiber theory. So that's not a word that we want to ask the system to look for. I've also put Schreiber theory in quotes because I want those two words in that specific word order. This way I'll be searching for a phrase as opposed to separating those two words. I see students doing this a lot. Professor says that they want a scholarly article, in this case discussing green screen technology and its impact on special effects, and that's exactly what they put into the search bar. But just like you don't start out writing a paper by saying, I shall now write a paper, these people, when they write a scholarly article, don't actually use the words scholarly article in their article. So those aren't words that you want to look for. So instead, I'm going to look for green screen, and again, I'll put it in quotes, but I'm also going to think about the words that are more commonly used in the industry. So one of the things that you're learning in school is the vernacular of a given field. What is the language that that particular field uses? So scholars are more likely to use chroma key. So if I do a search using those words instead of just the generic green screen, I'm more likely to get the results I'm looking for. So a couple of quick tips. Start out broad and add your terms or limiters one at a time. You don't want to throw everything in at the same time because you could end up with no results and you won't be sure why. So add a word and see what that does. Take away a limiter and see how that might affect your search. You want to make sure that you're being flexible. It's an art. It's not a science. You're not necessarily going to find one right, perfect way of doing a search. Also, like I said, consider synonyms, especially those words that are used in the industry. Don't write your full thesis. And check your spelling. If it wasn't for spell check, I'd still be in English 1100. This right, they'll say, oh, did you mean such and such? And by the way, we've already done the search for you. Library databases will assume however you've spelled something that's what you're looking for. So if you misspell something, especially a theorist's name, it's just going to say that there are no results. Always double check. You also want to avoid punctuation. Remember that library databases read punctuation differently than humans do. When a human sees a sentence that ends in a question mark, they say, oh, you're asking me a question. When a library database sees a sentence that ends in a question mark, they say, oh, you're giving me a command. Since we're not in library school and I don't expect you to memorize library commands, you can just ignore them.
How do you get from a research question to a pile of useful articles? Magic! Wait, no, what am I saying? It's keywords, or key phrases if you have more than one word. Keywords are index terms. The word index comes from Latin, meaning pointer finger. Index terms point the way for a computer to retrieve a particular document from a database. 2 to 4 keywords or key phrases are usually sufficient for a search. This isn't a case of more is better. It's a case of the right amount is the right amount. Only use one keyword and you'll get way too many results. More than 4 keywords and you might not get any. 2 to 4 keywords will hopefully yield a few dozen to a few hundred results. That's the sweet spot. The quality of your keywords makes a difference too. The more unique and specific, the better. Keywords come from research questions, like this one. Are people who play video games at an increased risk of being violent? To get the answer, we need to squeeze our research question for some keywords that'll lead us to relevant empirical research. First, we take a look at the question and cross out anything that doesn't contain specific meaning. Are people who at and risk of being? Play is just the word we use to describe what someone is doing with a game, and there really aren't any other options like working a game, so it's gone. Increased here is tougher. It's getting at the relationship between video games and violence, but I'm going to cross it out too because I don't want to exclude any research that suggests video games might decrease violent behavior. I'm not trying to find an excuse to demonize video games. I'm trying to answer a question. I don't want to blame something for the sake of blaming something. Okay, that leaves us with video games and violent. These are keepers because they refer to specific concepts, and they won't bias my search results. 2 good keywords can be enough, but it's good to be prepared just in case they're not. We've gotten all we can from the research questions, so that means we gotta get creative. We take the keywords we already found and blow them up like this. Broader concepts go on top, narrower concepts go underneath. The original 2 keywords are probably still the best ones, but these others could be helpful too. Thusly armed with keywords, you can choose a database and start searching. If you don't find anything right away, don't be discouraged. Our databases contain millions of articles, and we have dozens of databases. There are more articles in a single database than you could read if you lived 5 lifetimes. Provided you've chosen a real academic topic and not something bizarre like the relationship between Beowulf and Batman, there's gonna be research out there. Oh wait, here's an article about that. Huh. If you aren't finding anything, it's because you're hunting for delicious penguins up at the North Pole. It's funny because they don't live there. Try a few different databases before you start to worry. Also, you only really need to locate one good article. Articles are written by, and I say this with love, hardcore professional nerds. They're gonna be thorough. Flip to the end of that article you found and check the references. It'll contain a comprehensive list of books and articles on your topic. You can then locate those articles in our databases, or skim the text of the article for new keywords. Maybe you can find some terminology you haven't thought of yet. For example, a lot of the research about video games seems to use the word aggression. So remember, identify the key concepts in your research question in order to produce keywords, use 2 to 4 keywords at a time, try the same searches in more than one database, and if you find just one good article, treat it like a freshly slaughtered whale carcass and mine it for everything it's worth. Ambergris.
Alright, so now we're going to move on and we're going to talk a little bit about JETfind. JETfind is a search engine that I suggest everybody from first years through faculty begin their research. It's not the only place that you're going to look, but it is the best place to start. And that's because it's going to look through all of our resources all at one time. All of the streaming movies, all of the physical books, all of the ebooks, all of the articles, everything that we have all at once. There's a couple of different ways to get there. My favorite way is by signing into Canvas first and then clicking on this little button. That will authenticate, which means that it will tell the system that you're a MLIS student. Otherwise, you may be asked to sign in or start paying for articles. You should never pay for articles while you're in college. So I'm at the library homepage, and you see right here, this is the JETfind box right up here. Now, I'm just doing a simple search for documentary film and production. If I wanted to, I could make a limit right over here, and I could say I only want to look at articles and more, which will be all of the electronic resources, anything that lives in the cloud. If I wanted to, I could look over here in the library catalog, and that will be all of the physical materials that are actually housed within the library. But the default is everything, and that will search through both of these at the same time. And that's what I've done here. All right, so now we can see my search right over here. You can see it right up at the top. If I wanted to, I could pick one of these. So I could say I'm only looking for articles, books, images, or video. And there's also all of these limiters down here on the side. And now the first thing I'll notice is that we have over 3,000 results, which is too many. I'm not going to look through 3,000 results. So we need to narrow this down a bit. I'm going to come over here to the date range, and I'm going to say the past 10 years. And I'll just set my date. And now we can see that the active filter is showing years 2015 to 2025. Now the next thing I'm going to do is choose a format. So first, let's take a look at books. So I'll come over here to resource type, and I'll come down here to books. This will get rid of any articles, videos, movies, etc. And now I'm only looking at books. So I'll click on the title of a particular book, and it's going to bring me to the record page. This has all of the information that I'm going to need to create my citations. You can see down over here, here's where it was published, who published it, the year it was published. Here is the author and the title. If I like this book, I'll click right here, and it's going to bring me to the particular database where this book is found. So I just need to log in. And now we can see, in this case, we have unlimited access to this book. Sometimes you might see we have 3 copies or 1 copy. If that's the case, you may need to wait until somebody else has finished with the book. Just like if it was a physical book, you'd need to wait for them to put it back on the shelf. So I can download books or chapters, but in general, what I tend to do is click right here and read it online. So that's what I'll do, and that's going to bring me to the full text of the book. I can just scroll down and read the whole book like this if I want to. Or I can come over here to skip to a particular page. I can also choose some text to highlight, or choose some text to make notes. I'll save my notes, and you'll start to see them populate on the side. One of the things that I particularly enjoy about using ebooks is that I can search through the full text of the book right over here. So I can say a particular word, and I'll see it's not mentioned in any of these places, but you see it is mentioned here. That's why there's this purple in this bar. I'm just going to look and see in context the words, and it'll show you exactly where it is. It automatically highlights it. So this makes it very easy to quickly and easily find sections, so you don't have to read the entire book. Once I have highlighted, it automatically added it to my bookshelf up here. So I click on the bookshelf, and now I can see all of the different books that I've annotated. You see I have 98 here, and I can make different shelves if I want to, and then I can add books to those shelves so I can organize it very easily. And you'll see that the annotations are still available, and I can quickly jump to them in the book. So we found some books that we like. Now we want to find an article. I don't need to reinvent the whole wheel. I can lock my filter and get rid of books. And now this time I can click on peer review. So I don't have to redo the entire search. I can just do some of it. Now I'm getting results that aren't in English. So one thing I can do is I can come down here to language and pick English. And then another thing that I can do is I can come down here to the subject area. I'm just going to click on show more so I can see all of the different options. Now I said to the system, I like the words documentary films. I want you to go through the articles, and if it mentions documentary film, show it to me. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what the article is particularly about. It could be about a director who has made documentary films and they happen to mention it, but now they're talking about an action movie that they've made. So if I want to get to books that are, to articles that are specifically about documentary films, I'll click right here. These articles were specifically tagged as being focused on documentary films, so it's a much more targeted search. I can click on the title of a particular article that I liked. And you'll see that the record looks fairly similar to the way that they looked when we were looking for books. I still have the publisher and where it was published. Here is the title of the journal, the date, volume number, issue number, page number. Way down here, this is the DOI. DOI stands for Digital Object Identifier, and it's basically like the equivalent of a serial number for a particular article. So this unique number is specific to this article. If I really like this article, but I'm having trouble finding other articles on the same topic, I can look and see what this article was tagged with and use these as suggestions for other words that I might want to try next. Then this is my favorite way to search. When I find a particular article that I like, I can see who cited it and who they cited. And that's a quick and easy way to find lots of articles on the same subject quickly and easily. If I like this article, then I can come up here. It's housed in 2 different databases. Don't let that throw you. Either one will bring you to the right article. So I just clicked on the first link. In this case, it's bringing me to a JSTOR database. And here's the full article right here. I also like to see if they mention other journal articles that might be useful to help me with my research as well. Now remember, we've been looking at peer-reviewed articles and ebooks, but there are lots of different resources that you can look through. So maybe I might be interested in images. Now I can easily find images on a particular topic. If you're ever lost, you can always chat with a librarian in any of the databases that we're in. Just click right here and a little chat box will pop up. This way you'll be able to ask a librarian a question in the database. Now that we've looked at the JETfind box, which looks through all of our resources all at one time, we're going to take a look at a more subject-specific database, in this case, Communication and Mass Media Complete. Now you may be asking yourself, if we've looked at the JETfind box, which will look through all of our resources at once, why would I want to look at a subject-specific resource? Well, the reason is because they're optimized just for that particular topic. They will know the words that are most similar. So going back to my green screen chroma example before, if I were to search for green screen, they will have a controlled vocabulary that will know that it's also supposed to look for chroma key. So I'm at the library homepage, and if I want to see what databases we have for a particular subject, I can come here to Databases by Subject. And now I'm going to come to Communications, but you see that we have databases for each of the schools for all of the different departments. So I'll click on Communications, and now I can see all of the databases that we have available. So these are specific to communications and arts, but you'll notice if you keep scrolling that we have communications resources that are specific to other disciplines, as for example, business or education. So I'm just going to click on the very first one, Communication and Mass Media Complete from EBSCO. We have it, so it brings you to the advanced search. And the nice thing about that is that it breaks these up. So it makes it a little easier for people to see. And you can also increase your searching power by using the different fields. So the default is just going to be to search through all fields. But maybe I'm interested in an article that a particular director wrote. I can check and see if we have anything by specifying that I'm looking for the author. And then when I put in their name, I'm not going to get articles about them. I'm only going to get articles that they specifically wrote. Notice right over here that I've clicked on peer review, but I'm not going to click on full text. I get the temptation, but the reason why I'm not going to click on full text is because we have something called an citation linker, which means that it will look through other databases that we have to see if you found a particular article that we have in a different database. This is saying I only want it if it's full text in this database. But as long as you can get the article, does it really matter to you which database it's in? I can also choose a publication date or a particular publication. So in this case, I've said the past 5 years. And now I'm going to look at the different search options that I have. And this right here is the main reason why you would want to go to a subject-specific database, because it's going to apply related words and equivalent subjects because it knows what those are. So I've done my basic search. And if I want or I need to change any of my filters or I'm not sure what they are, I can do that up here. And now I'm going to take a look at one of the articles, and it will bring me to the record page within the database. And you see it doesn't look so different from the way that it looked in JETfind. Here is the source, the title of the journal, the date, volume number, issue number, and page number. Again, here is where I can ask the librarian a question. And again, these are Malloy librarians that will be answering your questions. This isn't farmed out. Under the access options, I can have download a PDF, or I can online full text if I would prefer. If I want to, I can create an account and I can save it. I suggest that you do this if you are going to be a communications major and you're going to be in and out of this database all of the time. If this is not your major, I would probably suggest just saving it onto your desktop instead. I am not going to use the citation features in the databases, not because I have a problem with citation makers. I just want them to work. And a lot of the times, the ones in the databases don't work. So if you go onto the Writing and Citing LibGuide, you'll be able to see some resources that we do suggest for creating citations. Here is where I will be able to share the article. Don't copy and paste the URL of the article up top. Click right here to be able to share it. I'm just going to scroll further down on this record and show you the subject terms. Again, I can use these as suggestions for other keywords that I might want to look at. And down here is the abstract, which is the summary of the article to see if it's worth my time saving. Going further down, I can also see the author affiliations. That's important to make sure that they're a trustworthy resource. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. And down here is the DOI. Next, we're going to discuss LibGuides. LibGuides are mini websites that librarians create to help make your researching easier. So again, I'm back at the library homepage, and I'm just going to click right here on LibGuides. And this will bring me to all the different sections. You'll see that some of them are for specific students. For example, right here we have first year students. There's also a section for doctoral students. And then we also have ones that are general. So for example, culture or library and writing resources aren't necessarily for a specific major, but then there are certain ones for different departments, for example, communications. So I'm just going to click on communications, and now we can see all of the different LibGuides that we have within it. And we can also see that the subject librarian for this subject is Tabitha Octera. Every subject is going to be assigned a different librarian who is a subject specialist and knows a lot about researching that and creating the collection for it and doing things like making LibGuides. I'm going to take a look at the very first LibGuide up here, which is communications, broadcast, radio, and television. Like you may have a different writing style from other people, librarians have different LibGuide styles. So they're not all going to look the same. In this case, Tabitha has broken it up into different books, databases, DVDs, journals, websites, and where to ask a librarian. So they've added a whole bunch of different Library of Congress section headings. These are different searches that Tabitha suggested you might want to do. If I click here on books, these are a bunch of different books that are helpful. Databases will bring us back to that section we were at before where we can see all the communications art databases. Here's where we can see different DVDs and streaming videos that we have on the subject. Different journals that we suggest. And finally, websites. The websites is one of my favorite reasons for coming to LibGuides because we have vetted these websites. It can be very difficult to find trustworthy resources online, so coming here will be one step towards finding more trustworthy resources. Now we're going to take a look at CCOW source analysis. There are many different ways that you can analyze a resource. This is just one of the techniques that we have given you. The real important thing is to analyze resources in general. Don't assume that the information that you're being given is trustworthy. We always want to take a look at it. I'm doing this specifically for academic resources, but these skills will help you when you're analyzing any information that is presented to you by anybody. The first thing you need to be aware of is your confirmation bias. So your bias are the things that you already believe. In this case, we're talking about academic bias. So, for example, we mentioned the Schreiber theory before. If you strongly agree with the Schreiber theory, and anytime that somebody shows you something that maybe questions it or criticizes it, you say, I don't want to look at it. I'm only looking at things that already agree with my opinion. Then you are confirming your bias. And it's very important that you don't do this. So you want to make sure that you're not seeking or interpreting evidence in ways that are partial to your existing beliefs, your expectations, or a hypothesis that you already have in hand. So CCOW has 4 different components that we're going to look at. This is not a checklist where it must pass every single component in order for you to deem it trustworthy. Instead, it's a list of criteria that I want you to look at and make a decision for yourself after looking at all of these different areas, whether you think a resource is trustworthy or not. So the first one we're going to look at are credentials. There are 2 credentials that you need to look at, the author and the publisher. So the author's credentials, does the author hold a degree in a relevant topic? Do they work in a relevant field? Are they part of a relevant professional association? Have they written on this topic before? Do they provide contact information from a reputable source? Now, I don't expect you to actually contact these people, but if you can't find any contact information about them, that is usually a red flag. You should be able to see where they're affiliated with fairly easily. When you search for their name online, doing a quick Google search, are there any issues with this work or any other works that they may have written before? And finally, do they have any relevant experience beyond their career that may be helpful, even if they don't have a degree in this particular topic? And like I mentioned, the other credential we need to look at is the publisher. So have they printed on this topic before? Do they charge to publish works? It used to be extremely difficult to get something published. But now, as long as you're willing to pay somebody money, I can publish filthy lies on Amazon if I want to, and there's nobody there to tell me no. So you have to be very cautious if somebody is paying to publish the work and ask yourself why that's the case. Do they charge to peer review? Believe it or not, there are journals that are nefarious enough that they will have people rubber stamp their articles to quote unquote claim that they're peer reviewed, but they are not. When you search for the company's name online, do you see any controversies or complaints about other works that they've published in the past? Next, we're going to take a look at the claims that the article is making. Is the information supported by other reputable sources? This is why your professor will usually ask you to look at at least 3 different resources. You want to make sure that you're not looking at an outlier. Is each claim backed up by evidence? Does the conclusions that the author developed seem plausible to you? Is it from a peer-reviewed source? Are there spelling or grammar mistakes? Is it up to date, if applicable? If we're looking at a historical article, obviously that's not the case. Is it arranged logically and consistently? Has the author been cited in any other published works? That's usually a really good indicator. Did the author cite their sources appropriately? And overall, what's your gut telling you? What's your overall impression of the source? There are so many resources out there that if you feel that there's something wrong with it or you're just getting a bad feeling about it, move on. Next, we have objectives. So why did they write this piece? Is the author trying to convince you of something? Is the publisher trying to sell a product or a service? Is the source satirical or intentionally misleading? And finally, we come to the worldview. So does the author work for a lobbying or advocacy group, and how might that influence the piece? What do you know about the author's background and life experience, and how might that affect their work? How do your own beliefs and experiences influence how you've read and analyzed the work? And finally, are there any viewpoints that are missing from the conversation? So because this is an asynchronous course, I wasn't able to ask if you had any questions. However, librarianship is a helping profession. I like when people ask me questions. So I'll show you all the places that you can go if you need some clarification on any of the things that I've discussed today. I'm back at the library homepage, and I'm just going to click right here on Ask a Librarian. The most popular way is to chat with us. I showed you those chat boxes before. You can also give us a call on the phone or email us. You can follow our social media, or you can meet with us. Sit down with us for a half hour to an hour. We can help you with your research projects, or if you wanted to learn any resources. Here's where you can see what our hours are and give us a suggestion if you have it. I also want to mention that my email is sbloom, B-L-O-O-M, @malloy.edu. That's sbloom@malloy.edu.